What's up, YouTube? Excited to have you guys along for another Bublitz craft build. Today we're going to be taking you through a build for this little kitchen table that we've got here. We got this second hand and it's actually missing its center leaf. So we're going to take you through and build a center leaf for this. I decided I'm not going to actually try to match the wood grain look on the two sides of the table, and I'm actually going to go for an accent center leaf piece of this table. So we're going to use some pallet wood, which I love working with, and then thinking I'm going to try to use some epoxy inlay in some of the pallet wood gaps and cracks. So stay tuned. Since I decided I was going to build the leaf out of pallet wood, I had to do what you always got to do working on a pallet project, which was start by disassembling a pallet. After disassembling, it was planing and getting the boards down to where the rough wood was gone and it was the nice flat surface that I could work with. So I planed down the pallet woods and ripped down the sides to get them pretty evenly straight. And this is kind of what our tabletop leaf is going to look like. Now there's two things that came about from using the pallet wood that we're going to have to work on to make sure that the my tabletop is an inch thick. These you can see are nowhere near an inch thick. They're a little under a half-inch thick. So what we're going to have to do to fix that is I'm going to be using some common white wood. I'll plane this down to get the combined total thickness with these laying on top of each other to be an inch thick. The other issue running into from working with pallet wood is these boards are not 48 inches wide, which is the width that I need at that center part of the table. So we're going to have these 5 pieces running across the width as long as they can be, and then I'm probably going to do, I'm thinking, something like one of these tacked onto the end. And I may use this gap area as a kind of fill spot. Fill in with epoxy resin. So that's what I'm thinking right about now. Let's start working. So one more challenge that building the center tabletop with epoxy resin causes for my build is that tabletop is actually wider than my planer will allow. My planer only allows 12 inches wide cuts, so I'm actually going to have to break this into 2 separate pieces. I'm going to do one 3-piece wide and then one 2-piece wide. I'll build those up, get them to the right thickness, put the epoxy in, plane them back down, and get the overflow of the epoxy, and then I'll join these two together as the last thing, sand them level as needed. Hopefully not too much sanding. So these boards are going to serve as the base to get that 1-inch desired thickness I'm looking for the leaf of the tabletop. Like I said, I got to do 2 separate pieces to fit the width of my planer. I'm going to actually join these 2 boards together to make one of those pieces. This is actually a little wider than one of those pieces is going to be, but I'll trim it down to size once I glue the pallet pieces on. So clamping with these extra pieces on each side, they actually squeeze the boards level and flat to make sure this edge lip isn't too serious. I'm not too concerned since I am going to be planing this down to the right thickness, but it doesn't hurt to throw those extra clamps on just to make sure things get pretty level. With the two parts of the bottom of my table leaf together, it was time to move on to gluing down all of the pallet boards on top of the base of the leaf. After gluing the pallet boards down to the base plate, it was time for me to trim off the excess of the base for the table leaf, and then I would plane down the combined pallet and base to the appropriate thickness to match the rest of my table. So today's part of the build is a cautionary tale of quite a few things actually not to do. So first, always go more than you expect you're going to need for the epoxy. I approximated it and thought I was going a little more, but I ended up actually going a little right about what I needed, but it caused some issues because obviously you're going to have some overflow in some areas, and you're going to, since I got all these cracks that I'm trying to get things into, you kind of want the epoxy to pool over top of the surface, and so it was very close call, and there may actually even be a few spots that are a little low that I may need to go back and fill in again. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is I was trying to be a little skimpy on the mica powder and trying to get a little transparency, and I ended up part of the way through the pour deciding I didn't like how transparent it was because I wanted the thin cracks to have that color. So then I kind of had to go back through and try to fill in and add more color in spots where I thought I needed, and that's always a pain in the ass. It's better to get the consistent color, take the extra time when you're mixing the epoxy to get exactly the color you want. And yeah, so those are the cautionary things that I advise you. We'll see how, I'm hoping this still turns out good with one layer of epoxy. If it is low in a couple areas, I'll probably come back, and after I plane everything down and get it, I'll find those low areas and I'll put another layer of epoxy and hopefully learn from my mistakes. Stay tuned. So we're here for the second epoxy pour. Like I had expected from the first one, there's a few minor spots that where the epoxy didn't get to the exact level of the wood. So I'm going to be filling those spots in right now. And as soon as you're done pouring, you want to take your propane torch or hair dryer. Really, if you can get a propane torch, it's way easier than using a hair dryer or a heat gun. So you're going to take that, light it up, and then just lightly go over and pop all the bubbles. Super easy. So with the boards now planed and routed edges, it's time to join them together since I'm not planning to plane anymore and I've already got epoxy filled in on most of the spots. So to join them together, I'm going to use a combination of wood glue on the inside edge, some biscuit joints to get it nice and level across the top, and then some pocket screws to give it a little extra strength and a little extra tightness holding it together when I glue it all up. So I've got 5 coats of varnish on here and I let it dry, harden up fully, and now I'm going to do the last little touches on these pieces before I do the mounting brackets, which is I'm going to rub out the finish. I'm going to use some 2000 grit sandpaper. I'm going to get use a wet sanding, and then I'm going to also use a drywall sanding block to wrap the paper around to give it a little more flat and even surface and make it. And that should just get out the little orange peel that you'll feel and take this up to a really super smooth, high gloss finish that I'm looking for. Well, there you have it. Our accent pallet wood table leaf is complete, installed. I really like how this piece turned out. I love the green bits from the epoxy and how they highlight this piece. And I do like the contrast between the table leaf and the rest of the table. I just knew I wasn't going to be able to match this stain exactly because this table has already been stained and refinished and restained in the past. So I figured it was better off to just go and make it an accent piece. And like I said, I love how this piece came out. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please feel free to like, give us a comment, or subscribe to our channel. And I hope you'll stay tuned for future Bublitz craft videos. Thank you.